Hey guys, welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm your host, Jason Lee, and again, I'm joined today by Mr. Andrew, how do you pronounce that?
Biar.
Biar.
Yes, sir.
See, I love that. I was gonna wreck that, so I'm glad you told me.
Everybody thinks it's French. It's not.
It's not.
Not
Okay.
French.
Well, what is it?
Windish,
Windish.
which was northern Germany at one time.
Okay.
And our people came over and gave away our culture, our language, and everything else, and we became Germans.
When you
We're
became
really-
German.
We're not really
But
Germans.
you're not.
But,
You're like,
but-
no, I'm Windish, and I'm proud of
That's
it.
right,
So,
that's right,
yeah,
that's
BR.
Yes.
Mr. Biar, we're glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
And excited to have you talk a little bit about what we would consider stakeholder outreach. And so, and we use the term stakeholder in this region, as in the show, and in the marketplace, for the work that's being done. But before we dive into what stakeholder outreach is, let's define what a stakeholder is, because there's probably someone listening going, "Yeah, a stakeholder," but then they're like, "What's a stakeholder?" So what's a stakeholder?
So in the work that we do in the public affairs arena, lobbying and government relations and communications, a stakeholder is anybody who will be impacted by a project. If you're building a pipeline, if you're bringing a new facility in, like we're talking about Corpus Christi, there's going to be a new refinery down there. You're going to build a retail development. You're going to build a housing, a residential single-family homes, 1,000 units. Anybody who lives near that, who has regulatory capability, political people, citizens, reporters, a stakeholder, when you're dealing with things that we work with, stakeholders include almost everybody in the community.
Really? Okay.
But for the most part, when we start boiling it down with the work we do, we're going to talk about probably political leaders more than anything, county commissioners, state legislators, county judges, things like that.
But but again, to help everybody grasp that, and I think it's important to emphasize that because, while we have a lot of folks on this show that are centered around the Chevrons of the world, which is, somebody that an Andrew would represent, we are looking out for the best interest of all of the stakeholders. So if you're listening to this right now, you stumbled into this episode and you're a teacher and you work at one of these high schools around the corner from here in Deer Park, and you just happen to, someone said, you should check out this show. Their host is amazing. And you said, well, why not? And then so you tuned in. Guess what? It's because we care about you and your impact. Chevron cares about your impact. Andrew's out there fighting when I say your impact, the things that are going to impact your life. And that's what this organization's about. It's all the way down to the teacher in the high school and then all the way up to the guys running the port, the refinery, and folks down there in Washington, right?
Right.
And so you're a bridge between those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your hard work. So by being a bridge, can you define really more or less what you guys do? Is your company called Strategic Public Affairs?
Yeah,
Okay,
we've been around 26 years. We do lobbying and government relations. My wife is my business partner. That's good most of the time.
Yeah.
It is good all the time. She's a very important part of our success. And we've got somebody down in Austin, as I'd mentioned to you, who works for us full time. And then we've got some other partners here in Houston region that we work with. So on stakeholder outreach, typically, as I mentioned, anytime you're going to change the footprint in a community, that's when we will go out on behalf of our client. It could be a pipeline company. It could be an industrial company like Chevron. Anywhere where you are a home builder where you're going to change a footprint in a community, you want to go communicate to the people in that community what you're going to do.
Gotcha.
Life is about relationships, right? That's really what we're all here about is relationships. Yep. And what you want to do with stakeholder outreach is build relationships with the stakeholders, be transparent with them about what you're doing, and communicate with them effectively. And relationships should be ideally a two-way street. And so with stakeholder outreach, you want that process to be a two-way street. You want to go in and listen to what concerns might be about your project, and you want to communicate to those stakeholders what you're going to do with your project. So typically what we'll do when we go in and look at a potential project, and I'll use a pipeline here because it's usually an easier way for me to describe what we do. We go in, we look at that community. It'll be a lot of kind of homework on the phone, homework on the computer. We do a political and social risk analysis. We look at if that pipeline coming through, we'll say there's 4 counties it's going through, right? We'll go county by county and we'll look at, are the political leaders supportive of it? Is the community going to be supportive of the project? Is it going to impact schools? Is it going to impact emergency services? Is it going to bring tax revenue? How does this project impact the community? Then, have there been issues in the past related to your project or your industry that were negative?
Okay.
Could that have carryover influence on what's happening? So you put all that research together, you put together your project one-pager, And then you go out and start talking to the stakeholders, and you want to go early. You want to go way before you even get the route developed on that pipeline, or way before you're going to buy that property for your new refinery. You want to be ahead of the project. What I've seen, and we're seeing this a little bit with the data centers right now, which I think is relevant to everybody listening, is I feel some of the data centers go in and they just kind of like, well, we're good for the community. Well, right now, there's a lot of people who are saying, wait a minute, you're going to have an impact on electricity. You're going to have an impact on water use. And so you want to be able to go into that community and tell them why your project's going to benefit the community.
Right. And
then you want to go in and you want to get, you were talking about teachers, right? How do I go out on behalf of my client and benefit the stakeholders like teachers? So we'll go on behalf of, say, a pipeline client, and we'll sit down with the political leaders and say, where are the needs in the community? Who needs something? Is it the 4-H? Is there a nonprofit in town that needs money and support? And so we'll go in, take a list of those things, go to the client and say, hey, these are the 6 things. The volunteer fire department needs money. The schools need money. The 4-H, the rodeo, whatever it is. So you're going out, and part of your outreach to those political leaders in the community is, we're going to be in your community. We want to be a part of it, and we want to be a good neighbor and a good citizen in your community. Okay. And so then you're going out and you're communicating this with these political leaders, and you've got to do it on a regular basis. You don't just go in, and you need to do it in person. I know people who do stakeholder outreach, they pick up the phone, they call it in. To me, that doesn't work. To me, it's a one-on-one, or it's an in-person meeting.
Because I always love cold calls about something.
Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm calling today on behalf of a pipeline we're building in your neighborhood.
Yes,
I'd love to talk to you.
That's
and
right.
See how you feel.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just did.
What? I'm with my family right now, bro. Yeah, exactly.
I just did about a 8-county, I call it tour, for one of our pipeline clients, where I went and I was on the road for about a week or two, and it was going to talk to the leaders in those communities.
Wow.
We developed the one-pager. It's got the who, what, where, why, and when about the project. It's got my phone number. And one of the things that I think is important with stakeholder outreach is, again, it's a two-way street. Those political leaders need to have my phone number, and they need to be able to reach me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A lot of people don't like that idea who kind of work in our world, but my belief is, and what I believe our clients want to know, is that somebody is going to answer that call, return that call, and get back to that policy leader or that community leader and say, we heard your concern, we heard your issue, we're going to get back to you, I'll route it to the right person in the company. And so that's part of the risk mitigation. I think I mentioned earlier, stakeholder outreach is also mitigating risk for a project, right? And so making sure that pipeline gets turned on and is delivering gas or liquids at the right time when it was scheduled to be.
Right.
Anytime you hit a bump in the road, these local political leaders can bring a project to a standstill.
Right.
That's risk, real risk. I was working on a pipeline project, and this one county commissioner, now the commissioners give the permits out for road use and for a lot of other stuff. Permits allow you to do your project.
Right.
Well, this one well-intentioned young lady who was working in the company called this one county commissioner and kind of read him the write-up about who they were, blah, 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 blah. He calls me and says, who called me? And why was she calling me and giving me demands and orders?
Oh, wow.
And I told her, well, she told me, she said, who does he think he is? The king of his kingdom? I said, well, there's 5 people on a commissioner's court. One of those is a county judge. You got to be able to count to 3 and get votes. And basically, everybody else on the court, if you support my projects, I'm going to support yours. Leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. What she didn't get is that county commissioner, he is the king of his precinct. And all he's got to do is say, I'm sorry, you don't get your permits anymore. I know that sounds crass, but you can't go blowing into somebody's community acting like you're the best thing since sliced bread until you sat down to listen to them, what their concerns are, what their needs are.
Wow.
And so that, to me, is that, again, that's the risk mitigation. If he or she decides to pull those permits, I had one where we were working on a project in East Texas in the middle of the year. A lot of companies in the past would kind of go in and blow through a community and not fix the roads and not take care of the community and not take care of the constituents' properties. Right. That's changed, right?
That's kind of old school.
Yes, right? That's right. We live in a new world.
We did you a favor.
Yes, that's right. There's a little money for your property.
Yeah.
Well, in the middle of this 2 or 3 year project, I was checking in with this one county commissioner. He goes, oh, by the way, your permits aren't any good because we just decided to redo them all. I was like, Commissioner, can we figure out how to get these permits so that they're grandfathered and we can keep using them? Because again, if you don't have your permits, you don't have trucks on the road, you can't go do the work you want to do, you don't have construction equipment on the road. And so the stakeholder outreach is an ongoing process throughout the life of the project. And if you've got a refinery, let's just say, well, I'll use the refinery as an example. You'll see it all along the ship channel here. You've got men and women who work for Shell and Pemex and Chevron. Those men and women, that's called ongoing stakeholder engagement, right? It's people like Christina Schlenker, who works with Port Houston. Her job is engaging with organizations, engaging with stakeholders for the port to constantly communicate to them. So you build a new refinery along the ship channel. Well, once the initial outreach is done, you've got the facility up and running. You need somebody who is going to be in the community on your behalf, constantly talking to them, asking what their concerns might be about your asset, what might have happened, was there an incident, was there something going on? And you got to respond to that. A lot of companies in the old days would put their head down in the sand and just say, this is what we do, we're going to keep doing it, leave us alone. And you can't do that anymore. So
yeah, I think you really helped answer a lot that I was going to ask you just in that brief example, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm bringing all this revenue and I'm bringing all this, what I would think business to you, what's the big deal? Like, right. But I guess in the world of, now that I think about it, if I have a role or responsibility as some type of governing official, and that's my backyard, right? I take a lot of responsibility in that. And in that person's world, it could be in like whatever little country town that you're passing through to develop that pipeline. That could be the most significant role in the world to that person. And they can you could be you might have to get through that town to get, to Houston or to the port.
That's right.
And that guy in that town could shut your whole project down if he says, I'm not permitting or whatever, right?
That's right.
So, wow, you never
They can cause problems. Most of the time, these men and women don't. And I will tell you, so I work with members of Congress. I work with the state legislature. I work with our governor and lieutenant governor and the speaker. So I work with a lot of people who deal with complex issues and represent a lot of folks. I will tell you the men and women, and those are all great people to work with, but I will tell you, working with the men and women who are county commissioners from a lot of these counties in rural Texas, they are there to serve the people.
Of course.
Like you were saying. They are there to make sure their constituents' property is taken care of, that they've got passable roads. And it's a very honorable approach to how they do their work. I sat down with this one county judge and county commissioner, and they said, before I even got to kind of tell them who I was, and I've been friends with one of these county judges now, Daryl Melton out in Sabine County. He's a wonderful person. He's about to retire. Daryl is there to serve his community. And he said, if you know that my job is to serve the men and women of Sabine County, Texas, then we're going to get along great. And that's going to be your job too. So that's, it's kind of how you got to look at it. We're here to bring in a pipeline, but what are we going to do to serve that community while we're here?
What an important role. And you would think in the middle of it, it's how these large companies that are building and moving throughout territory, why it's so critical to have somebody who's really orchestrates those relationships at the ground level. Both at the stakeholder, all the way down the community, then all the way to Washington. And you can't just have your marketing branding person who's flown in, who's from
I'm from Washington D.C. and I'm here to help you. Right?
I'm here to help. Yeah. It's just not going to vibe, right? Like it's just there's going to be a major disconnect in how those people communicate, what they feel, what they think. And I know I would feel that way. Like I'll be like, you have no vested interest in my area. Like I
give an example of that. So one project we were brought in on, as you can see, I wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. I think I told you I was for a hobby. I worked in NASCAR for about 15 years, and now I still do some grassroots stock car racing stuff.
He's our people.
So there was a solar project being done in Texas. I got to be very delicate how I say this. And the young men and women who were the leaders of it, they were probably in their late 30s, early 40s, and it was a solar project. And there are, I like all energy, right?
Yeah.
There are some in the oil and gas business still who don't like solar, but oil and gas is used to make solar, so I think we all work together, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. Nonetheless,
I agree.
So they were kind of seen as these young, yuppie-ish, didn't understand rural Texas people. They were coming in their loafers and pretty pants and stuff and talking
Skinny
to these
jeans.
coming to talk to these county commissioners, and they weren't getting anywhere.
Right.
So I get a phone call from a mutual friend. He goes, Andrew, this company needs somebody who speaks NASCAR.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess that's me. I can do that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I was brought up and, my dad's from rural Texas and it's a different way of looking at life.
100%.
It is about taking care of what's important and and taking care of the, your P's and Q's and your blocking and tackling. And that's what it's about. And so
I
I went in and
meeting tonight at a crawfish place. Like it's like a massive meeting, right?
Yeah.
Big time, huge, lawyers, whatever. And to get the client out, we had to do crawfish.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
You kind of go there on their terms. And so once I got involved and went down and started talking with these county commissioners and county judges, we understood each other, right? And I wasn't from Washington and I'm here to help you. I wasn't a big corporate person. I agree with you. You can't send in the marketing team. It's got to be relational. And I mentioned it earlier. It's got to be about relationships. And I'll tell you the cool thing I mentioned Judge Melton. I've known him for 10 years now. And for me, when I wasn't working this community, I would just call him every once in a while because Daryl's a fun person to just hang out and talk to.
Right.
And in the process of this, you meet good people. Some people you may have a relationship with the rest of your life. Some you'll have just during the course of the project you're working on. But they're fun people and they're honorable and they really want to do what's best for their community. And so that's kind of the role you got to take is what's important to them and understand their needs and what makes their community tick.
So let's do this. I want to give you a chance because rather than, this has been a great episode already because I think you've done a great job of just illustrating what that means when someone says, I closed the gap between, the person bringing in the project and then all the rest of the stakeholders, both all the way from bottom to top. And so just your stories have done a great job of that. It's not on our questions, but I wanted to help our audience understand. So, if I'm a business, at what point in time do I need to start thinking about this? Because is it just a project? If I'm doing a project, what type of companies? You know what I guess what I'm trying to say.
Who engages?
Yeah, who is the right candidate for when I need to?
Midstream companies,
okay,
oil and gas companies, manufacturers, retailers, real estate development, utility companies, construction and infrastructure. So think about building a pipeline, building a refinery, building a road. If you're going to be putting 1,000 homes in and building a new, community. Anybody who changes the footprint. If you think back, you and I are both old enough, I think. If you remember, there was the Walmart impact. Walmarts were being built everywhere. And people were getting a little concerned about, you're putting a Walmart there, you're putting a Walmart there. So somebody anywhere you change the footprint and you got to come in early. I want us to be brought in as early as possible in the decision-making process before you've chosen your site for
whatever you're building.
Yeah, for whatever you're building. I was refinery. I keep using that example, but Corpus Christi's on my mind because of all that down there. So someone like us should be brought in as part of that political and social risk analysis. That's before you choose your site. That's before you choose the route for your pipeline. That's before you decide where you're going to build that new asset and invest all that money. Because you're talking about millions, hundreds of millions, tens of millions, sometimes billions of dollars of investment that one stupid mess up in one community or with one political leader, it jeopardizes the entire project. We're seeing that with AI right now.
Data centers, right? And so data centers being, I think the assumption is, we all need more data. Like, what's the big deal? But here's a great example. If you want to put a data center here in beautiful Pasadena, right? I would be all for it because I use AI every day. I need more speed. I'm like, come on, let's go. Right. I understand it.
Right.
My mom, who lives right down the street, who doesn't tap it. But if you decided you were going to knock down Gillies and she's around the corner from Gillies and throw it there, she's going to be a little frustrated. She's going to need to understand what is this data and are these AIs robots going to take over our country? And there's a lot of what is this thing? It's because there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, right? They're tearing down stuff, bringing in water, bringing in electricity. It's a ton, right? And so it's right now, to your point earlier, it's kind of been the wild, wild west, but I can really hear and feel, anybody who says what I heard is if it impacts the footprint, that's what I hear.
Yes.
So if I was to look in that area, look at a map and say, I'm going to build right there, that's where I want to go. Before I pick there, I probably need to call Andrew and understand what is there, what's around there, who knows, is that really the best spot?
Is it going to impact the environment? Is it going to impact people's ability to get to and from work? Look at, I'll use a transportation example. And I want to go back to open houses because you just made me think of something with your mom.
Cool.
But look at the interchange with I-45 and I-10 right now.
Yeah.
That's disrupting a lot of people's daily life, right? So there had to be outreach done to people about that. And as a part of the outreach, I forgot to mention something earlier that's very important, is having open houses. When you're building a pipeline or you're doing a project, building an asset, I heard you say your mom, right?
Yeah.
Your mom and the people where your mom lives, they need to be able to go someplace, touch, taste, and feel, and see the project up on boards and know what it's all about and have a phone number to call. Open houses are vitally important to the stakeholder outreach process as well. And I forgot to mention that earlier. So I'm glad you mentioned your mother. You don't want mad moms. You don't want moms mad at you, right? If you're going to knock down my gillies, I mean, I wouldn't want to knock down my gillies, right?
Well, let's just be clear. No one's knocking down the gillies. It's a national treasure. But
that's right.
The truth is that and it's interesting because I have most of my clients are in construction, and so I'm always thinking about risks, liabilities, all the things you got to think about. And I think for the most part, most of them are building for somebody, for the owner.
Right.
So it's probably the owner who's actually needs to be doing that type of work. But for those that are building their own projects, those that are creating the footprint, still you never think about the disruption that could cause. And now there's times I've driven by stuff and thought to myself, what were they thinking?
Yes.
Like they're going to piss everybody off with that.
There was an incident here recently in our region. I'll say that. So with natural gas pipelines, you have to have compressor stations to have the compression to move the gas, right? Well, somebody decided that they were going to put the compressor station near a very populated area, and it got some pushback. I even got calls like, "Is this y'all's project?" I was like, "No." The siting of your location is very important. Yeah. You don't want to put certain assets near populated areas. Now, here on the Ship Channel's been here a long time. There are people who live in the community. These things go on a daily basis.
We're used to it.
That's right. Yeah. And I will tell you, so
like giant metal monsters, fire coming out.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's good. It's part of our life.
Yeah.
But Port Houston and the companies along the Ship Channel, they do a really good job of engaging with the community. You look at Valero, they've got people out there. You look at Targa Resources, you look at Kinder Morgan, and you look at the pipeline companies. They're engaged in what's going on in the community. And they're participating in groups like the Economic Alliance Port Houston region, right? And BayHep down there with Brian Friedman and Amy Skicky's group down at Baytran and TAG, Christina Cabral's group, and the Greater Houston Partnership. That's engagement in the community as well because they use organizations like Economic Alliance to tell their story. This is why we're here. And they're giving back to the community by being engaged in groups like this too. So,
well, I'll tell you what, we're nearing our time. So I want to make sure, is there anything else that we didn't capture today that you felt like, I think you did a great job of explaining the value of really stakeholder outreach and communicating and telling your story. I think that's what you are. You're a storyteller.
Yeah.
Right. But you're telling the story for both the people on the receiving end of the project, but then also on the delivering the project and then being a liaison between that, right?
I'd say if one thing that folks could take away from this is be engaged early when you're deciding on a project, if you're going to build something. So get engaged in your community very early, be engaged on a regular basis with your community, and not only know who your stakeholders are. One of the key stakeholders, in addition to the teachers and the schools and the people who are day-to-day there, but be engaged with policy leaders. Some people get frustrated with politicians. We all have frustrations in life.
Yeah.
But these political leaders can impact your life in ways day in and day out. And the closer you get to home, city council, county commissioner, they impact business in a very, very strong way. So have relationships with them. Go talk to them, support them, engage with them. When they need things, support their golf tournaments, be a part of their world and what they're doing, and make it a relationship that lasts long term. Again, I go back to it's relationships. That's what it's all about.
Understood.
Relationships.
I appreciate you pointing that out, and I think relationships are everything. I think it's actually, I would say that it's probably the thing that anchors this region so well.
Yes.
I've seen it.
We work well together around here.
It's just like there's this kind of everybody. I hate to say it, but you see it when tragedy happens in our region, when there's a massive flood or something. But you really just see people come together. But I don't think people understand that's happening at every level, right?
Well, one group I would point out that I didn't mention, and I know Chad's supportive of it, but Eric Carrero over the Greater Houston Port Bureau.
Absolutely.
So the Port Bureau, we work with them, and I was at the board meeting yesterday, and the one thing that I looked at my wife afterwards, I said, that's amazing about Houston, because I've done business all over the state, all over this country. The one thing about Houston is it's a can-do community, and we work together. All those men and women who were in that board meeting yesterday, they compete very much against each other, but they come together to work on the things that are common for the region and work to make the region better. So we compete every day, but we are very good at collaborating in this community. And I think that's what makes Houston unique. You had the Houston Business Journal in here earlier, and I had a chance to sit and listen to that. And you were asking what makes businesses want to come here. I think that's part of what makes business want to come to Houston, because we collaborate. We're willing to work together as we compete against one another, and willing to help each other and pick each other up. And I think that's what makes Houston unique and special.
Well, Andrew, I'm going to make sure Chad gives you a sticker for that, because you absolutely summed up the whole purpose of the Economic Alliance with that, because really that's our mission, right? It's to, to impact our stakeholders by showing and illustrating the work that can be done between the roadways and working with the people at, what is it called? TxDOT, working with, like you mentioned, Amy and down at Baytran, and working with guys like yourself and Chevron. And I mean, when you think about all these moving pieces and then the things that are needed behind it to keep this big machine running down here as efficiently as it does, it really is pretty awesome. It's a good testament to the people like yourself, people that serve in this organization, and the people like our stakeholders. So we do appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great episode. And as always, to our audience, we're going to do our best as stakeholders to make sure, meaning you, to bring you great information. We're going to continue to try to bring guys like Andrew to tell their story, and then also so you can get plugged in. Again, his company's name, Strategic Public Affairs, and Andrew Biar. Yeah, Biar. And so you want to make sure you reach out to Andrew if you're thinking, hey, I'm about to do a project. He'd be a great guy to talk to. And then also get plugged into the Economic Alliance if you have questions about that. Indeed. Reach out to the Economic Alliance. They're a great starting point to understand the region and what's taking place. If you want to recommend people for our show and get connected to us, give us feedback, best place to reach me is on LinkedIn, Jason Lee. You can send me notes, feedback, thoughts, and if you're interested in being on the show or have somebody who would be a great guest, please have them get connected with us. And again, Andrew, thank you. Thank you to our audience, and we'll see you guys next week.